Hello, I'm Raymond Go, and this is Nightline, news making the headlines. Handling of floods, government identifies 3 main weaknesses. And boarding schools to remain open despite increase in COVID-19 clusters. Good morning. There's no need for a ruling to close boarding schools despite an increase in COVID-19 clusters involving these academic institutions, as many of the cases there involve mild symptoms or were asymptomatic. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said infections are bound to happen and closing the boarding schools would be a step backward, as the teenage vaccination rate was already over 90%.
Jangan kita menyusahkan pelajar-pelajar ini dan juga ibu bapa mereka. We want the schools to be open. We want the kids to be at school. We have to progress forward. We must percaya kepada keberkesanan vaksin dan juga langkah-langkah keselamatan ataupun kesihatan awam yang lain. It's manageable.
Speaking in a media conference in Parliament on Thursday, Khairi also said that a total of 52 education clusters, including 27 boarding schools, were detected during the first week after schools reopened until Wednesday. Of these 52 clusters, 44 of them had students as index cases, while the rest involved teachers, lecturers, or support staff as index cases. The minister added that the gathering of students had increased the risk of transmission, resulting in 15 new clusters in the first week of schooling before rising to 33 in the following week. He also revealed that all states reported education clusters except Perlis, Terengganu, Sarawak and Labuan. Khairi also pointed out that his ministry will discuss with the Education Ministry on measures to strengthen control and prevention activities of COVID-19 infection at educational institutions. To date, nearly 580,000 children aged 18 and under have been infected with COVID-19 since the pandemic hit the country in 2020. Of the total, 269,773 involved children aged between 5 and 11. Meanwhile, the appointment bookings for the vaccination program for children aged 5 to 12 will be opened in stages through MySejahtera starting January 31st, beginning with those residing in the Klang Valley. As a start, parents can register their children as dependents in their MySejahtera application, and further details in the program will be announced soon.
Pelancaran program pemberian vaksinasi kanak-kanak usia 5 hingga 12 tahun akan diadakan pada 3 Februari 2022 di Hospital Tunku Azizah, Kuala Lumpur.
He added that the ministry is targeting for 70% of children in the age group to be given the first pediatric dose of the Pfizer vaccine within 2 months from the start of the program. Priority for vaccination at the start of the program is for children with health problems such as chronic respiratory, cardiovascular diseases and diabetes, as they are more at risk of getting severe COVID-19 infection. On another matter, Khairi said the Health Ministry has agreed to remove the mandatory use of thermal scanners to check body temperatures from the existing SOPs for entry to public places. Only the MySejahtera QR code scan is required for this purpose. Khairi also announced that the quarantine period for travellers who had received booster doses will be shortened to 5 days from the previous 7 days, effective January 24th. Plus, Malaysia Berhad has given its commitment to carry out improvements on the radio frequency identification RFID toll payment system along the North-South Expressway from Juru to Skudai. This amid following public complaints on the RFID implementation and the removal of the SmartTAG lanes at certain toll plazas. In a statement on Thursday, Plus said 19 touch-and-go lanes will be turned into SmartTAG lanes at 16 toll plazas by January 25th in anticipation of the Chinese New Year travel exodus. Similar move will be carried out at another 18 toll plazas on February 19th. According to PLUS, quicker double-arm lane barriers will be deployed at plazas with high traffic to ensure traffic will be able to be managed and cleared quickly. Additionally, visual RFID detection zones will be painted on the lanes to help customers position their vehicles for optimum detection. On January 15th, PLUS introduced the RFID as an additional payment option on its interstate highway network, and to date, the system has about 1.5 million existing users. However, the removal of SmartTAG lanes at certain toll plazas resulted in severe congestion and inconvenience to many motorists.
Assistance to flood victims. Weeding out errant traders. Stabilizing prices of essential items. The new normal of buying online. And Malaysia's cost of living challenges. Consumers International President Dato' N. Marimutu speaks to Money Matters this Saturday at 5 p.m. only on TV3.
The government has identified several weaknesses and issues in the handling of the year-end floods that devastated the nation last month. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said there were three main challenges which needed attention and immediate improvements, including weaknesses in command and control. Speaking during the special parliamentary sitting on the floods on Thursday, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri said the absence of the National Disaster Management Agency NADMA in states and districts had made it difficult to coordinate directly with agencies on the field. He also said it was important for close cooperation between quarters, such as the state government and local authorities, to ensure the effectiveness of national disaster management was at an optimum level. The current organizational structure also limits NADMA's capabilities to coordinate disaster management actions, which involve residents, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and local authorities. Dato' Sri Ismail Sabri also pointed out that there were weaknesses in information management, adding that the country's disaster management relied highly on accurate and quick dynamic information from the field. He said at this time, disaster management in the country still used conventional information gathering methods, which were not in line with current technological developments.
Situasi ini menyebabkan proses penyediaan laporan, penganalisaan, pembuatan keputusan dan pengurusan data mempunyai kelemahan yang ketara dan penyaluran maklumat dengan lebih pantas dan tepat kepada agensi-agensi tindak balas dan mangsa banjir masih perlu diperbaiki.
The Prime Minister was also of the view that there were still weaknesses in the understanding of the National Security Council NSC directive relating to policy and mechanisms of national disaster management among relevant agencies at the federal, state and district levels, as well as among statutory bodies, private sector and relevant NGOs. To address the flooding issue, Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri stated that he had directed the responsible agencies to accelerate the second phase development of the flood forecast and warning system, covering 38 major river basins nationwide to enable more accurate early flood forecasts to be issued. On preparing food for flood victims, he added that retort technology can be used to prepare ready-to-eat meals, as it enables the food to last longer and the packaging is also more durable and moisture-resistant. The Prime Minister also stressed that disaster risk reduction must not be taken lightly and should be improved through a whole-of-society approach and applied in all aspects, including development, economy, education, health, and others. Meanwhile, the Dewan Rakyat was told that over 300 billion ringgit is needed for the proposed long-term solutions to flood problems nationwide, which will be implemented in phases for 50 years until the year 2100. Environment and Water Minister Datuk Sri Tuan Ibrahim Tuan Man said among the proposed long-term solutions is the formulation of the Water Sector Adaptation Act, by taking into account the need to increase the level of protection of the country's drainage and coastal infrastructures.
Termasuk juga pembinaan tebatan banjir, pembinaan benteng, menaik taraf ban-ban yang sedia ada dan pencegahan hakisan pantai. Dan semua ini menelan kos yang sangat besar. Namun dalam jangka masa yang panjang, negara perlu melaksanakan beberapa langkah-langkah yang telah saya nyatakan tadi, sekurang-kurangnya bagi mengurangkan resiko pada masa hadapan.
The minister added that under the Act, the ministry would propose a special fund or trust fund to increase the adaptive capacity of the water sector and coastal areas through the development and maintenance of infrastructures that takes into account climate change factors. Datuk Sri Tuan Ibrahim added that the capacity of floodwater reservoirs will be increased through the implementation of riverside reservoir projects and dams for flood mitigation and water resources purposes. Other measures included the development of a national adaptation centre to coordinate policies and implementation of climate change adaptation, integration of disaster risks, and prevention of loss and damage due to the effects of climate change involving vulnerable sectors. The Finance Minister, meanwhile, said the government's assistance for flood victims under the Bantuan Banjir Keluarga Malaysia program is expected to reach 2 billion ringgit. Describing the sum as unprecedented, Datuk Sri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz said that the figure was an increase from the 1.4 billion ringgit allocation that the government previously announced.
Pada kali ini, selain menambah baik kadar dan skop BWI bagi monsun Timur Laut, kerajaan turut membantu mangsa banjir antaranya melalui pemberian voucher diskaun pembelian barangan elektrik, diskaun membaiki kenderaan, bantuan pembelian barangan keperluan asas serta bantuan pembaikan kecil rumah.
The Finance Minister attributed the increased amount to costs for the implementation of assistance programs in addition to the repair of homes and public facilities. He also noted that flood victims are also eligible for interest-free personal loans and a 6-month moratorium on existing loan repayments. The government has agreed to table the anti-hopping law at the first meeting of the 5th term of the 14th Parliament sitting, which will commence on February 28th. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Parliament and Law, Datuk Sri Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, said the move came after calls by Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob to speed up the tabling of the bill. Datuk Sri Wan Junaidi said the Prime Minister wanted a bipartisan technical group set up for the purpose. The committee to drive transformation and political stability, he said, would comprise 4 representatives from the government and opposition. He added the committee will meet next week to look into the policy and framework of the proposed bill. Anti-hopping laws are among the areas of reforms which are to be carried out following the Memorandum of Understanding signed in September last year between the government and Pakatan Harapan to ensure political stability for the nation. 2 men charged with colleagues' murder. Details when Nightline returns. continues. Police revealed that there were individuals who are willing to be injected with distilled water just to get fake COVID-19 vaccination certificates from a doctor at a private clinic in Marang. Terengganu Police Chief Dato' Rohaimi Mat Isa said investigations found that 1,223 names of individuals involved in the activity had been sent to the vendor for the issuance of vaccination certificates through MySejahtera.
Bagaimanapun, saya dimaklumkan bahawa kesemua MySejahtera yang berasal daripada klinik tersebut telah diblok oleh KKM. Maknanya tidak berfungsi lah. Maknanya dia tidak, validity dia itu tidak ada. Jadi, dan saya juga dimaklumkan oleh setengah-setengah jabatan yang mana mengesyaki pekerja-pekerja mereka adalah terlibat sama di dalam klinik tersebut.
Dato' Rohaimi said he was informed that the Health Ministry had blocked the issuance of vaccination certificates by the clinic. On January 8th, a 51-year-old doctor was nabbed after he was suspected of selling fake vaccination certificates. The case was being investigated under the Penal Code, and the suspect was released on police bail pending further action by the public prosecutor. In Perak, 2 men were charged in the Tapah Magistrates Court on Thursday with the murder of their colleague, whose body was discovered buried at an oil palm plantation recently. N. Magiswaran and M. Anbu, aged 31 and 30, only nodded after the charge was read out to them before Magistrate Siti Hanum Muhammad Shah, who set March 21st for case mention. No plea was recorded as the case is under the jurisdiction of the High Court. The duo were accused of killing 29-year-old D. Guna Silan at a fish pond in Kampung Poh, Bidor on September 13th last year. The victim was reported missing 4 months ago before police managed to nab one of the suspects, who then led authorities to where the body was buried last week. The charge under the Penal Code provides the death penalty upon conviction. In Malacca, a man and his 3 children were charged separately in the Ayakro Sessions Court with charges of cheating and abetting to cheat a company in a non-existent sand mining project involving losses of 1 million ringgit. 63-year-old Wong Ting Kiong pleaded not guilty before Judge Nariman Badruddin to 2 counts of cheating and dishonestly inducing Chong Teamwork Marketing Sdn Bhd to hand over the money through 2 checks for the bogus project. In another court before Judge Mazia Johari Tajuddin, his children, Amy Wong E. Tim, Wong Sing Kung and Felix Wong Sing Ji, aged between 26 and 42, were charged with abetting their father in committing the act. The charges under the Penal Code carry an imprisonment of up to 10 years, whipping and a fine if found guilty. Wong and his children, who allegedly committed the act at a bank in Malacca Raya on April 19, 2019, were granted bail at 20,000 ringgit and 2,000 ringgit respectively, with both counts fixed for February 21st for mention. Still to come, Omicron variant falls back across the UK. Stay tuned. now. British Health Secretary Sajid Javid on Thursday said the Omicron variant was in retreat after the United Kingdom government moved to lift most COVID-19 restrictions in England. Speaking at a media conference, Javid said so-called Plan B measures in place since December had afforded time to turn the tide of rising infections.
Our plan was to use the time that Plan B gave us to give ourselves extra power in our fight against Omicron. This plan has worked, and the data shows that Omicron is in retreat. Today's ONS data shows a fall in infections, including in older age groups.
Face masks will no longer be mandatory in public places and schools in England, and COVID-19 passports will be dropped for large events. According to the Health Secretary, the lifting of restrictions represented a major milestone, but added vigilance must be maintained as there could be bumps in the road ahead. He added Britain must learn to live with the coronavirus as it may be with them forever, although the country was moving ahead of other countries. Britain has the second worst pandemic death toll in Europe after Russia, with over 153,000 confirmed virus-related deaths. For the first time, U.S. President Joe Biden ended his first year in the White House with 54% of Americans disapproving his handling of the presidency. His ratings began to drop at the time of a widely criticized withdrawal of U.S. troops from Afghanistan and as the Delta variant advanced.
The truth is that presidents do actually face a lot of headwinds when they first get into office. I mean, there is that honeymoon phase where everybody is enthusiastic about the new possibility, but then the realities of the difficult problems that they were brought in to fix start to present themselves. So historically, we see presidents have difficulty when it comes to poll numbers, typically between their first and second year.
Nearly 6 in 10 Americans said that Biden has not paid enough attention to the country's most important problems and the rate of Biden dealing with the virus, dropping his approval to 46%, as most of the adults feel worn out by the changes they had to make in their daily lives due to COVID-19. Ever since he has struggled to deliver on his biggest campaign promises to tame the pandemic and restore prosperity for working families. A United States warship sailed through the South China Sea on Thursday, sparking a warning from China's military as tensions between the superpowers remain high. The Southern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army said the USS Benfold illegally entered into Chinese territorial waters without permission, violating the country's sovereignty, and that Chinese naval and air forces started to track the ship. The nation demands that the U.S. side immediately stop such provocative actions, otherwise it will bear the serious consequences of unforeseen events. China claims almost all of the South China Sea, through which trillions of dollars in trade passes annually, with competing claims from Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. However, multiple Western navies conduct freedom of navigation operations known in military circles as FONOPs to assert the idea that the South China Sea is an international waterway. Thursday's passage by the USS Benfold was the first declared FONOP of the year. Red Bull Leipzig march into German Cup quarterfinals. Stay tuned, sports is up next. aboard the German Cup, Red Bull Leipzig advanced to the quarter-finals as they beat Rostock 2-0 in the round of 16 on Thursday. Yusuf Poulsen headed in Lucas Klostermann's cross into the box in the 6th minute to give Leipzig the 1-0 lead. Christopher Nkunku came close to doubling the lead for the host, but his volley, however, hit the crossbar in the 40th minute. Leipzig then put the result beyond doubt when Dani Olmo finished off a counter-attack move 8 minutes from time to seal the 2-0 win. The win put Leipzig as favourites to win the cup after having lost twice in the final before to Bayern Munich in 2019 and against Dortmund last season. Over in Miami City of Florida, an exhibition called The Art of Banksy Without Limits at the Ice Palace Studios includes more than 115 Banksy works, together with certified originals, photos, prints, lithographs, murals, sculptures and video mapping installations. Let's take a look as we wrap up Nightline this time around. With that, I'm Raymond Go. Thank you for tuning in and stay safe, Malaysia.